Okay, the gods do this in shame. Act 2, scene 2. The gods do this in shame of cowardice. It's line 41 in your book. Till and Caesar shall go forth. The question is, what does the phrase, the gods do this in shame of cowardice mean? Jagrati, what does this phrase mean?
Ma'am, that the gods are doing this to make the cowards ashamed.
Who ashamed? To make whom
Ma'am, the
ashamed?
cowards, like the normal people, like who are scared of Caesar.
Yes, so gods disapprove of cowardice, that it is a dishonor, that Romans who are valued for their bravery are now have become, they have now become shame, they have now become cowards, and they are harboring fear. Fear of whom? Fear of Caesar.
Caesar.
So the line suggests that Caesar must demonstrate his courage to maintain his honor and reputation. That is why the people are in fear. Caesar, on the other hand, is doing this to maintain that fear in the minds of people. Only then he'll be able to rule, isn't it? So, by instilling fear in the minds of commoners, in the minds of ordinary Romans, Caesar is able to control. All right. And while the people who are associated, the Romans who were always associated with courage and bravery, they are now, they are now in fear. Their courage was highly valued. Roman honor and courage was highly valued, and now they are so much in fear of Caesar that it has become very shameful. That is what this means, that even the gods are very angry. The gods are also extremely angry with this. Am I clear? Arushi, have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Siddhi,
Yes, ma'am.
Samagya, have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm only discussing the most important parts of the scene. What does Angelina? I'm revising Act 2, Scene 2. I've already begun. Take out line 41. The gods do this in shame of cowardice.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, the next question is, the first question was, the gods do this in shame of cowardice. Explain this phrase. The next question is, what does Caesar mean when he says that Caesar should be a beast without a heart? What does that mean?
Ma'am, can you repeat?
In the second part, in the second, Caesar should be, second line, Caesar should be a beast without a heart. What does he mean by that?
Ma'am, that if
Hmm.
Caesar shows cowardness and stays at home, then it will be like the beast who is without the hurt.
Yes, because it will be dishonorable for Caesar. If the king,
Yes, ma'am.
if the ruler himself is in fear, then how will he rule the people? Okay, so this line, the second line, means Caesar should be a beast without a heart. It means that if he allows fear to prevent him from going to the Senate, he would be acting disgraceful and dishonorable, because as a true Roman, he should not be in fear. They were not fear. They would not fear of even death. So, in Roman culture, bravery and courage were highly regarded, and therefore Caesar, to show fear, it implies that he is a man or a beast without a heart. Means he is a person who has no reason or no courage. So, as a leader, Caesar should be extremely courageous. He should be courageous, and he should face danger without hesitation. In the next line, next to next, danger knows full well that Caesar is more dangerous than he. What does it mean, Angelina?
Ma'am,
Danger?
this
Say?
ma'am, this means that Caesar is more dangerous and more powerful
Hmm.
than the danger.
Itself.
He and
Hmm.
danger were born together
Hmm.
like two lions, and he was the elder one. So not even a danger can also defeat him.
Yes. So, what does it showcase, Jagriti? What does it show? What is the symbolism here? What does it
Ma-
show of Caesar?
Ma'am, that Caesar is very arrogant and that he thinks that nobody else is more powerful than him.
Yes, one word, that he is invincible. He is invincible or overconfident, and nobody can touch him. But he's a man after all. So he believes he's invincible and nobody can touch him, and that he is not afraid of any kind of danger. And he is more dangerous than danger itself. He is more dangerous than danger itself. So it is his superiority complex that speaks, that overconfidence. I'm above everything. Nobody will be able to do anything to me. That is what he believes. And that is what he says, that he's more dangerous than danger himself. Now, we are two lions littered in one day. What literary device is it? Siddhi, what is the literary device? Can't hear you, Siddhi. Yes, anybody? What is the literary device? It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. We are two lions littered in one day. This is a metaphor reflecting Caesar as invincible, Vincible, that he is powerful and he's dominant and nobody can touch him. That he is far more dangerous than danger itself. Invincibility, that nobody can do anything to him.
Ma'am, can you please repeat?
Yes, this is a metaphor reflecting or symbolizing. We are two lions littered in one day. This is a metaphor reflecting or symbolizing Caesar as being invincible or dominant or powerful, dominant and powerful, and considering himself superior, and considering himself superior to everyone. Okay, that we know because he says, I'm dangerous than danger itself. Now, another question is asked. In this speech, how does it foreshadow Caesar's fate? What is foreshadowing? The reason that he demonstrates his arrogance eventually leads to his downfall. He was murdered. So, had he listened to his wife and had he not gone to the Senate, he would have been living. So, how Caesar's decision of going to the Senate foreshadows his eventual fate. So, this event of not listening to his wife and his pride and arrogance leads to his tragic death. Okay? His disregard for all the omens that he was said, that this is what happened throughout the night, and not very natural. So, all the omens that he saw, everything that he saw, that he heard, complete disregard for all that. And his arrogance to go to the capital that day leads to his ultimate death, tragic death. Why tragic? Because had he not gone, had he listened to his wife, had he not been so arrogant, he would have probably lived. So, this speech is very important. I'm repeating because it foreshadows his eventual tragic death. Now, next extract. Calipunia, alas, my lord, your wisdom is consumed in confidence. Do not go forth today. Call it my fear that keeps you in the house and not your own. We'll send Mark Antony to the Senate house. Now, why is Calipunia trying to prevent Caesar from going to the capital? Because she fears his safety. She fears his safety because of the ominous dreams that she has dreamt. Those ominous dreams and strange reports that were conveyed to her. So which are all unnatural occurrences. Siddhi, are you able to hear me? So, write Siddhi if you are able to hear me or not. Okay. So, because she fears his safety based on the ominous dreams and the strange reports that are conveyed to her, she fears for his life because all these occurrences that she has dreamt and the reports that she has got, they are all unnatural. The storms, unnatural. All that is unnatural. All the reports. So she had heard that the streets, a lion is giving birth in the streets, graves opening, warriors fighting in the clouds, all this. And Caesar's statue was spouting blood. like a fountain, and Romans were washing their hands in it. All these are terrifying dreams because a lioness does not come to the city to give birth, and neither do graves open and the dead start walking. So, all these are unnatural occurrences. So, she wanted Caesar to stay back and avoid going to the Senate. And that is the reason why she said, we'll send Mark Antony to the Senate house, because he was also quite good after Caesar. He was also very important in an important position, and he could have managed that day. That is why California was wanting Mark Antony to go to the Senate instead of Caesar. Now, Jagriti, tell me, how does Decius interpret California's dream about the fountain, about the blood spouting from the
Yes, ma'am.
that
Ma'am
part?
said that
Hmm.
dream was totally misinterpreted,
Hmm.
and it was actually that Caesar would like become a god to all the Romans, and that every Roman would come and then wash their hands in his blood.
Hmm.
They would take things like tincture, stains, and relics,
Hmm.
the things which are touched by him to keep with themselves,
Okay.
and he
So,
will become like a lifeline to them.
yes, so Caesar's blood would be symbolic to Rome drawing strength and vitality. By people, means Caesar would become a life giving force. His blood would be a life giving, symbolic of life giving force. And that is why they would dip their swords and everything in the blood. So Decius purposely misinterprets the dream. Angelina, why does Decius purposely misinterpret the dream?
Because ma'am, Decius wanted Caesar to go to the Senate house, and then with Decius, all other
Conspirator.
senators,
Conspirator.
conspirators can kill him,
Would kill him. Would
would
kill
kill
him.
him.
Hmm. So Caesar ultimately decides to go to the Senate because Decius flatters. He uses flattery, and no man is untouched by flattery. And Caesar for sure falls for all the flattery. So Decius's interpretation is a flattering interpretation of the dream. And he does that purposely. And he says that it would appear cowardly of Caesar to not go to the Senate, which also Caesar hates being called a coward. He hates being called a coward. And Decius knows that. All the things that Caesar loves and hates. And therefore, he purposely uses all these things. He gives a flattering interpretation as to what people will do by, that fountain of blood coming out from his body, which California had seen. So he deliberately misinterprets, and Caesar's decision to go to the Senate shows what, Arushi? What does it show of his character? What does it symbolize?
Ma'am, can you repeat the question?
When Caesar's decision to go to the Senate after hearing Decius Brutus's flattering this thing, flattering this interpretation of the dream. So, why do you think Caesar decides to go to the Senate? What does it symbolize?
Ma'am, he thinks that
What?
um
He's arrogant and he
ma'am,
falls for, yes, he falls for flattery. He falls for the flattering interpretation of Decius Brutus. And he is in fear of being seen as weak and superstitious. So he listens to Decius Brutus and not his wife Calpurnia because he is in fear of people calling him superstitious, people calling him in fear of omens and portents. He does not want to give that picture that he is scared. No. So this symbolizes that Caesar is arrogant, his desire to keep his control, and the fear of seeming weak or superstitious is which makes him susceptible to flattery. All right, that makes him susceptible to flattery. Then, what will you call? What will you say about California, Samagya?
Ma'am, about her character.
Yes. What will you say? She's a normal wife. She's protective of her husband. She loves her husband dearly. So she's caring and a protective lady, just like any wife would do. She's protective, she's deeply caring, as well as she's intuitive. Sometimes you'll be asked about the characters. Write down the points. She is intuitive, she's fearful, she's deeply caring and protective of her husband.
Ma'am, after deeply careful,
Deeply careful, deeply caring, protective, intuitive, and fearful of the omens.
Fearful of?
The omens, reflecting her strong belief, reflecting her strong belief in supernatural warnings. Okay. Now, Decius's character, who will say? Siddhi is unable to speak. Jagriti say
Ma'am, about?
Decius's character in this scene.
Ma'am, Decius is very manipulative and he knows how to like flatter Caesar or flatter anybody else and then convince him in doing what he wants them to do.
Yes, he's extremely manipulative. He's cunning and he is persuasive. He will not leave without taking Caesar to the Senate, and that is why he opted for doing just the same. He had told Brutus and Cassius that he will definitely bring Caesar. And that's what he does. He's extremely persuasive. He's not only manipulative and cunning, he is extremely persuasive. And he uses persuasive language to influence Caesar. Persuasive language, he knows exactly what Caesar likes and he flatters him. So, his role in the conspiracy, remember, this is very, very important. Decius's role in the conspiracy is very important because he is the one to bring Caesar out from his home to the Senate because Caesar had initially decided he will not go to the Senate. All right. So Decius's role in bringing Caesar to the Senate is very, very important. He is not only cunning and manipulative, he uses persuasive language to influence Caesar by flattering him and convincing him to ignore all the warnings, and attend the Senate. So his role in the conspiracy becomes very, very important. What is the difference between Calpurnia's interpretation and Decius's interpretation? If you were asked this question, Calpurnia's interpretation of the dream is fearful and she she views the dream as a caution, as a warning. She views the dream as a warning of danger to Caesar, while Decius's explanation is glorifying and optimistic. Decius's interpretation of the dream of Caesar is glorifying and optimistic. Therefore, Decius plays a very important role in Act 2, Scene 2 because of his manipulative character and his persuasiveness, his rhetorical tactics. He uses all kinds of persuasive, cunning flattery, persuasive language, rhetorical tactics to influence and deceive everyone. So, Decius is extremely opportunistic and he is he is extremely deceitful. He's full of deceit. All right, he's very good at that. And therefore, he was the one to opt for coming here and taking Caesar, because he was sure that he will be the one to take Caesar to the Senate. Because they had assumed, they had thought of the idea that if Caesar does not come on the Ides of March and somehow he gets some kind of whiff or some kind of rumor that there is something bad going to happen, he will definitely not come. So that they had thought of it, thought of all the options. And Decius had said that he would be the one to bring him to the Senate. And he did exactly that. Now, Act 2, Scene 3. Artemidorus' speech. Here will I stand till Caesar pass along. And as a suitor will I give him this, my heart laments that virtue cannot live out of the teeth of emulation. If thou read this, O Caesar, thou mayst live. If not, the fates with traitors do contrive. The most important line in this Act 2, Scene 3 is my heart laments that virtue cannot live out of the teeth of emulation. What does it mean, Raghav? Raghav, are you able to hear me? Act 2, Scene 3? No? Okay,
Yes, ma'am, I'm able to hear, ma'am.
my,
The mic was glitching.
okay, my heart laments that virtue cannot live out of the teeth of emulation. What does it mean?
I don't remember this one.
Okay, this shows that Artemidorus' sorrow. He is very, very sorry that he laments, means he is sorry that virtuous leaders, write it down. He is sorry that virtuous leaders, good leaders like Caesar, cannot live, are often targets, right? Are often targets of envy and rivalry. Not everybody is happy at your happiness, isn't it? There'll be few who will be happy. Most of the people are jealous. So, this is what he says, that virtuous leaders like virtuous leaders like Caesar are often targets of rivalry. Because of Caesar's goodness, because of his leadership, he is prone, prone, prone to jealousy and envy. So, what does it symbolize? Artemidorus is talking about the competitive political world. There's so much of competition. Not healthy, not always healthy competition. Understood, Jagriti?
Yes, ma'am.
Raghav, have you understood? So, there is the corrupt and competitive political environment. It symbolizes the competitive and corrupt political environment. Next phrase, the fates with traitors do contrive. Meaning that Artemidorus is trying to say that if Caesar does not heed, does not, care for this warning, then his fate will be decided by the conspirators. Highlighting Artemidorus's this phrase, the fates which traitors do contrive, highlights the inevitability of Caesar's downfall. It highlights the inevitability of Caesar's downfall. So, what is the political environment in Rome as of now? The political environment in Rome as of now is full of jealousy. People are jealous of Caesar's rise. There is rivalry amongst each other, competitive spirit, not a healthy competition, rivalry amongst, and personal ambition and envy. All these are your keywords. Personal ambition over loyalty, envy, jealousy, all this, rivalry, betrayal. There's a
Ma'am,
lot of
over?
personal ambition over loyalty. Then there is betrayal, thirst for power. I'm giving you so many adjectives. Thirst for power. Everybody is greedy. Everybody wants to become Caesar, even though they don't have the capability. Yet they all want to become him. Okay. Now, listen to my question very, very carefully. What role does Artemidorus play in this scene? What will you write? He comes for Caesar, to defend Caesar. But then what happens? His failure to deliver the message and for Caesar to read his message. We know that Caesar plans, even though he delivers the letter, Caesar refuses to read it and says what concerns him will be read at last. And therefore, we already know that Caesar ignores the message, and thereby it deepens his tragic fate. We know that Caesar will not come out alive. Had he read the warnings, what Artemidorus had said, because he continuously was pleading Caesar to read his letter, but Caesar refused. Okay, he is a Roman teacher and a supporter of Caesar and representing the common citizens. And therefore, his letter that he had planned for Caesar to read, but Caesar ignores, which leads to his tragic death. And you can say downfall. Because we already know that Artemidorus has written about the conspiracy. He has already mentioned about the conspiracy, which he ignores, which Caesar ignores, and thereby, because he ignores,